We're ready to talk about solutions. This is chapter 16, section 1, and we're going to make my disappear early. We're talking about solution formation, how solutions form. We've already talked about dissolving and how things dissolve, so we need to look at ways that you can make a solution form more quickly. There are three things that you can do that make something dissolve faster. One of them is to stir, one is to change the temperature, and the other is to change the particle size. In general, the big theme here of all three of these is that if you increase the contact of the solute and the solvent, you should make the solution formation happen more quickly. So with stirring, I have on here that, stirring increases the rate that they come into contact with each other. It won't change how much you can dissolve, but it will change how fast it happens. If you increase temperature, that's generally the trend, that increased temperature increases the rate of dissolving, but it will also change how much can dissolve, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. And then you have particle size. And if you make smaller particles, that increases surface area, which makes dissolving happen more quickly. So basically, if you stir, increase temp, or make smaller particles, you get faster solution formation. Then we have solubility. Solubility is actually a description of how much you can dissolve, the amount of solute in a given amount of solvent. There's three levels of saturation. You have something that is unsaturated, which means it's still able to dissolve more. Saturated means it has dissolved everything that it can dissolve. And supersaturated means it has gone above and beyond. So I'll show you how that looks on a graph in just a second. You also have two other words, miscible and immiscible. Both of these are talking about miscibility. And two things that are miscible will dissolve. Things that will not dissolve are said to be immiscible, very simply put. Okay, here's an example of a solubility curve. And let's use the words that we just looked at. If I put a dot right here, the way that we would read this is that you come over here to the left, you have 30 grams of whatever salt we're going to look at and 100 grams of water. Well, the 30 grams of salt is kind of relative to what we look at. If we're talking about NaCl, this light blue line that goes through here is NaCl, and I can't drag my mouse straight for anything. If I have 30 grams of NaCl and 100 grams of water at 40 degrees Celsius down here, well, right here on this line where my red dot is right now, this is how much NaCl should dissolve in 100 grams of water at 40 degrees Celsius. And if you read over to the left, that's probably about 38 grams. If I only have 30, and it will dissolve 38, that is unsaturated. The way I remember this is that the dot sits under the line. Well, now if we look at the purple line, A2CrO7, well, this dot right here that I just made sits above the line. Right here is the amount of K2Cr2O7 that should dissolve in 100 grams of water at 40 degrees Celsius, and that would be maybe 22, 23. So if I had 30 grams in 100 grams of water at 40 degrees Celsius, that would be more than I really should be able to dissolve, so we would call that supersaturated. If I had exactly 23 grams in 100 grams of water at 40 degrees Celsius, A2Cr2O7, then that would be considered a saturated solution because the line sat, or the dot sat on the line. That's kind of how, like, if the dot sits on the line you're looking at, it's saturated. If the dot is above the line that you're looking at, like these two, then it's supersaturated, like Superman flies above the ground. And if it's under the line, like this dot is underneath the NaCl line, then it's unsaturated. This dot for NaCl would be saturated. Hopefully that makes sense. We're going to practice some of these in class. All right, we also have some things here, just some fine points about temperature. I told you that temperature usually increases the rate of dissolving and solubility. That's not true for gases, though. Gases usually are less soluble at higher temperatures and more soluble at lower temperatures. And pressure. Pressure also has the ability to affect gases. I think about soft drinks with these. If you open up the lid on a soft drink, you are able to basically let the pressure that's inside of the container to come out, and you lose the carbon dioxide. Without the pressure, the carbon dioxide is not as soluble, and your drink goes flat. So with gases, pressure is a big thing. We're going to work some of Henry's law. Henry's law is right here. Find my cursor again. That S1 over P1 equals S2 over P2. That is a division bar. And we'll work some of these in class. It's basically just a proportion that we'll set up, and we'll do some of those. I'm going on to section 2 to make one video. Section 2 is about concentration. We're going to work with molarity as well. Concentration describes how much solute there is in a given amount of solvent. And we have two words that you can use with this, dilute and concentrated. Dilute means that you have very little. The way that you think about this at home in terms of other things is you think watered down. And then concentrated means you have a large amount of solute compared to solvent. And if you were drinking something like coffee or tea or Kool-Aid, and you would say that it's too strong probably this way, but really what you're saying is it's too concentrated or too dilute instead of too watered down or too strong. We're also going to calculate something called molarity. And molarity is the number of moles of solute in 1 liter of solution. And basically right here, you have an equation for it. Well, that's a really bad circling on my part, but I don't have to redo this, so you get what you get. We're going to calculate some problems with this, so stay tuned for some more information about molarity in class. You may want to save yourself some space for some example problems. We're also going to work with dilutions. If you have a certain amount of one substance, like a certain molarity and a certain volume, we can use this formula in order to figure out how much to use of one thing to make a different type of solution. So for now, just write this down. We'll work some of these in class. And then we're also going to work some percent solutions. We've worked several things with percents lately. A percent, again, is a part over a whole. So we can actually work some percent solution problems. Go ahead and write this down as well. I would save myself some space every time that we have a word on here about we will work problems in class for this, because we're going to work percent by volume, which is volume of part over the volume of the whole thing, and mass of part over mass of the whole thing if we do a percent by mass.